Here we go. This is the last watercolor video. I just want to encourage you that you can, stop the video from time to time to kind of catch up where I am and, kind of enjoy this because it's non-objective. There's not too much pressure on any one thing we're doing. So have some fun with these different things. One more thing that I wanted you to get out is your little baggie of charcoals. And if you can't find it, the one of pastels, that would also work. So find this little baggie of charcoal. We'll be using it in a minute. You're also going to need your markers again. You're also going to need, you haven't used it yet, but you're going to need those pencils I asked you to get before. So we're working here towards the end of our packet on experimental things. Like I said, anything that is safe to use on a piece of paper is okay to use with watercolors as far as experimental fun techniques. Now, watercolor people sometimes are snobby. The top like watercolor artists would say, oh no, don't do this or that. But other than that, sky's wide open. You can do all kinds of things. If it's what I mean by safe to use on paper, oil paints, for instance, you never use on paper because they could actually corrode the paper and eat into the paper. It will shorten the lifespan of the paper. You couldn't sell an oil painting on a piece of paper because you're not selling something that's going to be there for a while. So if it's safe to use on paper, you can probably use it with watercolors. And so that's a little bit of what we're doing today. If I'm doing this at the same time as the last video, so I do have a water in most of my colors. I'm adding a little bit more, so that's always the first step. Also want to remind you, when you're done with your brush every day, remember you shake it in the water and then form it to a nice shape again so it can dry. So you always have to take care of your watercolor brushes. I just want to go into this overlapping techniques one more time, just because it's so much fun. You can keep going and going. Let's say I wanted even more color with this. I could go, maybe I'll add, hadn't really planned it, maybe I'll add some of this turquoise. I don't want it, I can tell it's really strong, right? I don't want it too strong. But let's say I wanted to overlap some of that here and there. So I have some interesting new overlapping colors I've created where certain colors are on top of each other. It makes these beautiful new colors. And that's what's just fun about this technique. Lots of times you're painting something, on purpose, but it just makes it look much more involved and kind of neat. So dry paper and just whatever you're doing, just overlapping transparent colors. The colors are always supposed to be transparent. So why that's just reminding you that you're supposed to be able to see through your colors. Anyway, so I had fun with that one more time. Next thing I'm going to do is as on the tape, it's had time to dry really well. What I mean by dry is what I'd call potato chip dry, like all the way dry. If you touch it and it feels cool, then it's not dry yet. So you either need to, I put mine by like a hair dryer to make sure I have it dry. But if yours isn't all the way dry, don't do this. I just wanted you to see, because I layered it twice, see if I got some interesting new techniques between the orange paintings and the red. Where I have a piece of tape, what I came up with here at the end. So it's kind of an interesting thing. My red's pretty strong, so you can't see the orange as well, but came up with some interesting things here with the next layer of the tape. Ripped a little bit, so it got wet there. Anyway, so the tape can be a whole lot of fun. And maybe if it was a painting, I'd probably go in one more time because I want to see more of a difference. I want to disguise those original red pieces of tape. The orange, the tape I used with the orange, you can't tell it's there or not anymore. Okay, let's play around with this markers. I said we were going to do a before and after kind of a thing. So if you already have a painting going, and I do this all the time, this is one of my very, very favorite things to do, is you can go back over the top of a painting as long as it's dry and add details. And what's nice about this is you can kind of use the paint that's already there as a guide for where you should be drawing the details. I can leave it a little bit informal and not say everything I need to say, because I don't want to kill the paint. I don't want to outline every shape of paint, but I want to kind of enhance it with maybe some drawing. So if this was a leaf, you know, doing something like that. So drawing with markers on top of a watercolor painting that's already dry is a very common thing. It's done a lot with sketchbooks, by the way. And also you can go back and kind of maybe change some things you didn't like I wanted something a little bigger, a little smaller. And there's no reason why I can't also do that with a colored marker. But if you want to consider it a piece of fine art, then you need to have a more permanent colored marker. The Crayolas, they might start to fade after a few years, so you would probably want to use a more high-end marker. But you know, sure, I can add colored markers on top of a painting as well. Why not? There's no, just kind of a fun thing to do. So sure, you can draw on top of a dry painting with markers. That's what I did right there. On the other side, if you have a painting that's already there or a drawing that's there and you want to paint on top of it, and this would be a very common sketchbook thing to do, probably a smaller, more delicate brush, but I want to show you, even if you just use water, the black is not going to come out, but these, what am I trying to say, Crayola colors, they're gonna spread out a little bit. They're gonna melt or dissolve into I'm just using water right now, into the water, and get some really interesting techniques. So I could actually do a painting with just water and my markers. That would be a fun thing to do in a sketchbook, like I said, especially if you don't have time for like extremely developed painting. Or I can go back, let's say, especially, I'm not really having this medium green today. So maybe I want to add a little bit more, I want to enhance my color. So right now I'm actually adding some little bit of paint, more yellow green to the situation. I like that a little better. Okay, it's starting to bleed. I can let it bleed a little bit. If it bleeds much more, I'm going to dab it out. So trying, do I like this before? Do I like this after? You know, this is I do this all the time with markers. Love working with these, and they're considered permanent. So it's something you can sell pieces of art that you've used Sharpie on. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, that was kind of fun. So turn off the camera if you're not done working on that one. Next thing we're going to do is, this is in reference to painting with a sponge. Sometimes you've probably seen a texture like this, like maybe you've done this in grade school where you took the paint and you put sponge in it and then you printed with a sponge. It's actually pretty cool. If you do that, I would use different colors and try some different things with it. If it's just the one color like this, then you kind of get this reaction, even if it looks great and there's nothing wrong with it. People are like, oh, look, he used a sponge. It's kind of like, isn't that cute? And you don't want a reaction to a beautiful piece of art to be, isn't that cute, right? So because of that sort of negative thing, I would say, I got water on my other painting, soak it off. We have an alternative to that, and that's actually just using a piece of paper to print with. So you get a piece of paper towel, white or brown paper towel. You probably have a white paper towel. And then you scrunch it all up. So what you want is tiny little folds of paper towel. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to get just a little bit of water here, because I want it to have some variation to it. I don't want it to only look like the paper towel. And then just dip it in a color. I'm going to go with the lighter color at first, and then I'll probably change my mind. So let's go this blue green. Remember, I don't want too much paint there, and I want it to be all wrinkly. So, and then I can just kind of print with this. See, it doesn't look anything like a sponge. It makes an interesting texture. Depending on what you came up with, it can look kind of like leather, it can look like natural things. Sometimes it looks like kind of like mechanical things. I'm reforming that. You can hear me crunching probably on the thing. going to go in with another color. I think I'll go add some blue with this. And I don't want too much, so I'm getting rid of some of that. I want lots of little wrinkles here. So I'm going to see what I end up with here. Yeah, I'm just went in with, it's kind of a different shapes, a different color. And anyway, play around with this crumpled paper, just dipping it. So yeah, the idea is it's not as recognized and sort of cute as using a sponge, but it's the same idea. It's a great way to add texture and so on to your drawing. I'm spreading it around with my finger this time. So anyway, a couple different colors. If you wanted to, you could have put tape on the edges. Anyway, kind of fun to work with. There's different, you could use a rag, you know, a wash rag. You can use different things to make textures with, but actually your piece of paper makes pretty nice texture. If it had a lot of water on it, like I said, you could pull it around and push it around. And depending on the quality of the paper, you can kind of abuse it a little bit. Let me show you maybe a closer up look of the texture I got. It doesn't look anything like a sponge, and it's kind of pretty. And if I wanted to add a little bit of water, you can see some. It gives me some nice variation there. And the next thing we're going to do is work with some charcoal. So this would be the same as working with pastels. And basically what's kind of cool is that the charcoal dissolves right into the water and can do some really nice things. I'm going to warn you, try not to mess up your watercolor kit with it because you're going to need to use it some more. Charcoal can definitely be used before and after. I think I'm going to, you can decide which stick you want to use the most. I'm going to, maybe I'll try some lines here. And then maybe some scribbles and see what I end up with. So here's the starting of my painting. And maybe what I'm going to do is just over here, I'm just going to use some water. And then see, it makes the lines really pretty and it kind of blends and stuff. So maybe I just have water right there. Okay, maybe in here, I'm going to add a little bit of red right in here. And some of the black is kind of fading into that. And this is bleeding over. I actually like that. I'm okay with that. Maybe here, I'm going to add some yellow. Now the yellow and black don't always make a nice combination. So sometimes it looks greenish. We'll see how that goes. And I think here, I'm going to add some water. But I also want to show you what it looks like when you draw on top of water. So you get this nice blending stuff, but when you draw with the charcoal on top of water, you can get a really nice dark line. I'm going to use this, see that piece of charcoal's tight, right? So I'm going to use my heavier piece of charcoal. See, you get these really rich, kind of creamy dark lines when the charcoal is wet. When it's dry, you kind of get the texture. When it's wet, you can kind of get this. So charcoal can be really fun to work with. Obviously, my painting needs a hint of blue somewhere, so let's add some. So we had a primary, we'll add some blue here. A little more water there. Anyway, so this is the idea. You can play around with the charcoal, get it, make some really cool lines and different things with it, and see what you come up with. So I think I'll use green a couple times, maybe some green here, some green in here. I'm just messing around right now, and for whatever reason, green has decided it has to appear in the painting, and the blue needs to be a little stronger. Okay, that's it for that painting. Let's get a little bit more red. The red gets to come out. Okay, so play around with your charcoal before and after the water. You get these really rich, neat designs. As you saw, this one was fine before, but your larger piece, it's a little looser, was a lot more fun to work with the water. So whichever ones you want to use, mess around with the charcoal. The pastels will do the same thing. You can get some really neat effects with this. I would say if you're doing it in a sketchbook, they have charcoal that comes in pencil form, and you have a little bit more control with that. Okay, the last one we're going to do is pencils. Now, pencils, just your basic graphite pencil is considered correct. It's considered okay to show at the very end of a drawing. So let's say if I'm going to draw a little house here, maybe a little cabin in the woods type of a thing. There's a tree. And here's the top of my cabin. And here's a path that kind of comes down here again. And then we have some more. So it's okay if I do a beautiful painting and these lines show at the very end. Because watercolors are transparent, you can often see the pencil lines at the very end of the painting. But I want to suggest to you that you can also draw with colored pencils in a watercolor drawing. This is a little more unusual thing to do. Some people think, no, you can't do that, as if someone can tell you that. But I'm kind of going to use a lot of pencil, because I just show you what it looks like in a second to have used it with also paint. So you can use regular pencils, you can use colored pencils. They're very harmonious with the watercolors, and it can look really nice together. Put this, need some more brown here and there. Brown here shows in the trees. Brown here, brown in the path. And then let's put in as if there's more trees. So I can do a little paint, I'll do a little painting right on top of this. But the idea is this can show at the very end. It's considered okay. Now in an acrylic painting, in an oil painting, other types of paintings, you often don't want to have pencils showing. It's considered not so okay. But it's okay in watercolors. That's the whole point of what we're doing right here. I'm just adding a little bit of, that's probably too much. Do something you don't like, remember, paper towel, get rid of it. And maybe a little bit more water. That's a very strange looking roof, that's okay. Let's get a little, so I'm just painting right now, I'm just having fun. It's small enough I didn't have to get it wet first. If I was doing a larger sky, I would have gotten it wet first. Okay, and let's see, some green. Kind of not, like I said, enjoying this regular green so much today. You can see my pencil lines are still showing. In fact, there may be kind of bringing out some of the color. It's also okay, I haven't even mentioned this much before, to have white showing, white paper. In fact, white paper should show in a watercolor drawing. It's part of it. It's part of what keeps it kind of light and expressive looking. So a little bit of white showing here and there is actually something you definitely want. A yellow-green is a color that you see towards you as opposed to further away. So if I want to make it look like these trees and the grass are closer to me, I'm going to put more of the yellow-green in. By the way, in your painting that you're doing right now, it doesn't have to be a little house in the woods or whatever. It can be something else. I'm using the blue-green here for other trees to make them look a little further away. And a little layer. Anyway, I could keep working on the painting and keep adding things to it, but this is the idea. And I'll use the blue-green for a little shading and a little outlining, as if it's like as if I was using like indigo or something. And I'll probably use go back a little bit of brown. Need to paint out that window and touch of blue-green. Anyway, so try doing some type of painting where you go ahead and let that let those pencil lines show, okay, and consider them part of the painting. And I would say try it with some colored pencils as well as your regular pencil, but either way, you want some pencils to show. So that's the little, you can paint anything, that's the little painting I just did. And so just letting your pencils show. So these are done now. So what you're going to be doing is you're just going to put them side by side and take a photo of it once everything's done. And hopefully you had some fun with it. No pressure on this. Each one's just an experiment. And we're going to get into some real paintings the next time. And I'll talk more about watercolor painting then.